I'm not a ranger yet, but I will be in the future.
Once a ranger,
Always a ranger.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Once a Ranger. I'm Minhas Morgul, and I'm joined with Nick, Nav, and Akhil, who you might know from TikTok. We're starting a Power Ranger podcast. This is our first episode in which we're going to go through each episode and share our opinions. Nick, Nav, and I are seasoned Ranger fans, but Akhil is not. He's a newbie, so we'll be getting to hear his insights for the first time. Akhil, why don't you just tell us about yourself?
Yeah, I'm Akhil. You might know me as Akhil Danani on TikTok. I talk about Lego, I talk about Star Wars, I talk about politics and religion, the basics. And now I get to watch Power Rangers for the first time with these wonderful people. I'm so excited to get into it. I've already seen the first episode for you here today. So if you're following along at home and if you haven't seen Power Rangers yet, we're in the same boat. So this is definitely the podcast.
Yeah, if you haven't watched it yet, watch it before, because there will be spoilers. Nick, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, I'm Nick, also known as Amazing Nickenger. I am on TikTok, where I usually talk about racial and ethnic identity in comparison to like pop culture, movies, television shows. And for me, Power Rangers is like the big like monolith for me. It's like my one big pillar of where I've sat in terms of how I relate to everything. It was my favorite piece of media like growing up. And it's exciting to kind of like have a space to kind of talk about that. I feel like I don't have a lot of people to talk about it in real life. And when I do, it's usually like I used to love watching it as a kid. And I was like, no, but I want to talk about the intricacies of why I think Time Force is the greatest season of all time. And everyone's like, I never watched it past that. And they're like, okay, all right, yeah. The Green Ranger's cool, I guess. That's cool, yeah.
Hey, spoilers, Nick, spoilers.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah.
One.
I'm talking like, man.
That's so funny. But yeah, I'm in the same boat as you, Nick. I started watching Power Rangers as a kid. I've never stopped. I do love Time Force. Unfortunately for me, RPM is my favorite season.
So good too, man.
RPM is so good. I do have a funny story with Power Rangers because when we were kids, we used to have satellite TV or cable, but we couldn't afford either of those. So I used to stick a safety pin at the back of the TV to get my channels. And Power Rangers was one of them. Oh. And then by the time Time Force came out, the channel disappeared. And this was before internet streaming, but I had found a website of someone who, for some reason, took screenshots of the episodes and was writing the plot underneath each screenshot. So my first time watching Time Force was not watching it, but reading it on this one person who was updating as the episodes came out.
So cool.
That's amazing.
So now, do you want to tell us a little bit about your story?
Sure. So yeah, my name is Navpreet Singh, Nav the Poet on social media. Similar to Nick, I fell in love with Power Rangers. Like everything you said, Nick, I was just like, yes, I want to talk about, like why Jungle Fury is such an underrated season. And people are like, I've never heard that. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, it's so good, So it's always just like, oh, the original. I was like, okay, it's great, but but yeah, for me, so I was born in 1992, and Power Rangers started airing here in 1993, and I was born with a heart condition, and I've had multiple surgeries throughout my life, and so I think it was like in kindergarten, I don't know, but my only memory of being in the hospital is like sitting in the hospital bed watching Power Rangers, like that's, and so like I have a very, very personal relationship with it, because like everything about Power Rangers, especially the first series with Mighty Morphin in particular, just the whole idea of wanting to help people, constantly striving to be better and coming together as a unit and like achieving greater than you possibly could imagine. It all just kind of like resonated with me and became how I've strived to live my life. So Power Rangers has had a profound effect on the person I am. And it's fond memories that I have with that show.
Yeah. That's a lovely and very difficult story. I'm glad that you've had that too with you, and I think that's why shows like this are so important. And of course, it's the reason why it stuck with you and through your adulthood. But on a happier note, let's get into the episode, shall we?
Yeah.
So, I think I'll kick things off. Power Rangers epic theme song, of course, the classic. But the funniest thing, first thing I noticed when this episode started, Rita Repulsa gets out of her little sewage pipe on the move, and it's dubbed. It's very obviously dubbed as an adult. I didn't realize it when I was a kid, but somebody helps her. She's like, "Oh, you made me step in a puddle on the moon."
yeah.
On the moon, and it's a desert. Like the background is a desert on the moon.
Yeah, it's kind of actually it's a little funny that like when I watch that scene again, it's just two astronauts. They're like, "Hey, look at that thing," and then they open it and they're like, "Oh shit, let's get out of here!" And I was like, "Whoa, like you can just leave." Like,
where did you go?
We spend literally years trying to get to the moon or like the planets or whatever, and it's just like these guys are like, "Oh shoot, all right, well." Somebody else's problem now. Let's get out of here, bro.
Let's spend the next 5 minutes on this hill over here while the camera keeps cutting to us.
We're gonna go to the dark side of the moon. I don't want to deal with Rita Repulsa or whatever that is. Because can you imagine if you're an astronaut, you don't really know that there's aliens out there.
Right.
And you go to the moon, which is the closest thing to you, right? We've explored it since the 60s. And there's an alien pops up. It's like a witch. It's scary.
Yeah. It's kind of campy, you know, like the way that they kind of act and like jump out and just like classic cartoon villain.
Yes.
I mean, like that's if there's a cartoon villain of the week, it's definitely Rita Repulsa. Like everyone strives to be Rita at this point in time. You're either above Rita or you're below, and for the most part, all of television was just trying to be Rita Repulsa.
That is actually a great observation, and I think I agree. She's the template that you have to try to achieve. Yeah. I think another thing I really liked about this episode was, and I'm interested to hear your thoughts about this, Akil, because us three know what these characters are like in the future. This episode really beautifully sets up each of the characters and what they're like immediately. We first of all see Zach doing his dancing. We know he's a dancer. We know Kimberly is a gymnast. We know Billy's kind of like insecure but has his strength. We see Jason's leadership qualities before he even is a ranger. He's kind, he's thoughtful, except to Bulk and Skull for some reason. They're mean to them. Like maybe a little bit unwarrantedly mean. Like I'm sure like they're jerks. I get it, but they're like almost like taunting them.
Yeah.
I like that.
I didn't see that as that mean. Like they barged into his karate class and they're like, "We want to learn how to beat people up." And I thought Jason handled that really well. He's like, "Yeah, that's not what martial arts is for. If you want to be in this class, let me see what you got." The music and that scene was mean to them, but I don't think
a little bit of humble pie, you know?
They did also try to assault Kimberly. Like
that's true. That's so true.
That too.
Maybe
harassed and then attempted assault. So yeah.
I mean, okay, fair enough. I take it back, but I also still felt it was a little bit more than. And I guess because I know in later seasons too, like how just like the ratio of what Bulk and Skull are doing to how people treat them, just kind of like it's different. But then another thing I noticed, so before, this is a little bit of spoilers, Akil. Before Tommy came, I think the ship was supposed to be Jason and Kimberly, because if you see, Trini and Kimberly are kind of whispering to each other when Jason is doing his stuff. It's kind of like, you know, how girls in high school would be like, "Oh, no, Tiki, that's your crush." And it's kind of going on there. And I think it's Kimberly instead of Trini because of how their relationship kind of progresses, like their friendship kind of progresses further on. But then as soon as Tommy comes, it's like, nah, forget about that. We're going to change it up a bit.
This is where my comic book knowledge comes in because Jason and Trini have a substantial relationship.
Do they?
Yeah.
Really?
Like it happens in Go-Go Power Rangers where like they train together mostly. And then I think they do date at some point, but it is kind of cool to kind of see that relationship kind of be sprinkled in a little bit in the beginning. That's kind of cool.
That's really neat. They don't really do it in the TV show, but you know, I might not be remembering properly. I'll actually pay attention to it this time. I'll be like looking at what each of them are doing.
There's definitely not a relationship, but you do see, and even in this episode, and I'll talk about more, but the Trini Jason friendship relationship, just like their bond is very particular, and like I think there's a lot of that goes on in the first season of just like
Yeah.
she's almost second in command. And so they kind of,
Yes.
because she's like the most skilled martial arts wise, before Tom
Yes.
comes in. But so she's kind of just like, and she has like a similar demeanor. They just, I love the two of them.
They do vibe very well, and
Comics
but
are a
then,
power couple for sure.
I would kind of like look into the comics. Maybe for special episodes we can do some comic things. But in the meantime, we just have the show to go off of. But going off of what you said, Nev, about Trini, another great like friendship relationship that Trini does have is with Billy, and I would argue that Trini is the only one who really kind of understands Billy throughout the season. She's the only one that can translate to him. Like nobody really understands Billy, and when Trini leaves, it really is a detriment to Billy because I feel like nobody really can keep up with him anymore. At a certain point, Rocky does it a little bit because he's a scientist, but not in the same way that Trini did. Because I don't think Rocky and Billy really like had their thing. Trini really was like there for Billy, and I think when you say that she was second in command, I can really see that because her relationship with Zach also was very strong. Like she's the only one who really kind of had a true relationship with each of the Rangers individually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know anything about that because that's in the rest of the season.
Yeah.
But I'm just thinking about like when they first get on to like they meet Zordon and they're like, we don't really want to be Power Rangers. I noticed that it was Trini, Jason, and Billy that sort of stayed there and stayed like, all right, let's hear this Power Rangers thing out while the other two were walking away. So like even from the first episode, they're already planting those seeds.
Yes.
The very interesting part about like when they meet Zordon and like all of them are just like in the command center. There's this thing with like writing characters, like you have to give them purpose and like a reason why they're doing anything, right? And teenagers and children are so hard to write because it's like they just don't want to do anything. Like they don't want to do anything unless it directly affects them. So I think it was like really smart to kind of pull them into the desert. And it's like, okay, well, even if you guys don't want to be Rangers, you guys still have to not want to be here together. That's still like a fun like kind of dynamic, and you obviously see like some of them do want to stay, some of them do want to go.
Yeah,
it's I think it's pretty. I don't know if it was like intentional at the time, but like looking at it now, it's like it's a really smart move to like give purpose for these teenagers that like otherwise would like, why would we want to save the day? That seems like a way above my pay grade kind of thing, you know?
Yeah.
But also going to what Minhas talks about with like how the episode highlights the dynamic, even in the command center, every personality is highlighted. Because Kimberly is just like, what is going on? Zach's kind of like, Billy's entranced by all the tech and everything, and Trini and Jason are just like, let's hear him out. You know, all their personalities shine in such a subtle way. And I think that's what the first episode does so well. Like, when rewatching it with the intention, I mean, I'm just like, oh, wow. Like, they're like, it's very well done, even though it's simplistic and it's subtle.
Yes.
I also feel like these kids are more like real life teenagers than anyone in the other seasons, right? I feel like they really upped the like childhood likeness of the teenagers in later seasons, where this one's just like, these guys could be like regular teens in the 90s. Like the way Kimberly is this is the only time we'll ever get a kiss ever. Never again. Like the amount of trauma I have from almost kisses because of Power Rangers is way too much. Let me tell you.
In Mighty Morphin? Like Mighty Morphin is the only time in Power Rangers they've kissed?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I was waiting for. I was watching the whole episode like, when are these people gonna kiss? I think when Zordon's like recruiting them for the first time, he tells Alpha 5, "Get me 5 overbearing and over emotional humans."
Yeah.
I think that's the quote.
Yeah.
He's like, "Oh no, teenagers!" But like, these are not overbearing and over emotional. These are like
well-adjusted people.
These are grown-ups.
Akil, just wait until you see like future episodes, because every episode starts with them doing the most altruistic thing in the world. And you're just like, what kind of overbearing teenagers are, like, they just like, today we're petitioning to save this park. It's like, who does that?
Yeah, I think it's so funny that didn't become the most memorable line, because now it's usually like, oh, find me 5 teenagers with attitude. Like that's the most, which doesn't show up until like the next episode, but it's only in the preview.
Yes.
which I think is really funny.
Yeah, fun fact about Zordon, they only shot his scenes for 1 day. Everything else is reused footage. And if you see, they like blur his mouth so you can't really see what he's saying. Yeah.
They use that wave effect, but between him and Rita, I'm like, this is the worst dubbing I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah. Well, Akil, do you have any other notes? I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Let's...
Yeah.
I loved just how campy it was. Coming from the Lego fandom, I love group of martial arts heroes. Each one has a color and a personality. Like, I love that genre. So this was amazing to see. I love that the blue one's the smart one. And then, like I said earlier, the music, every time there's like a comedic beat, it's like that cartoony music, and I miss that in TV
That iconic,
shows.
For Bulk and Skull specifically.
Like when Jason was showing off to Bulk, like the spin kicks and stuff, with Jason, it was like, chicka chicka. And then Bulk would come up, womp, womp, womp.
Okay, there was that moment where he's like teaching Billy, and it's like on beat every time they move. And I'm like, whoa, this is like...
It's serious.
When he does the first that side kick, it's the music literally just goes from the point of him in position to the kick, and then it cuts. Like, it's barely a second, but it's like right on beat with like everything they do.
Good.
I think that's why it's
like some guy in the studio on his synth just having the time of his life.
Yeah.
Well, it's Ron Wasserman at that time, at least.
Wow.
I mean, I imagine he did all the music. I know he did a lot of the like tracks, like the theme, and then all those like songs, like "Go Green Ranger Go." Like, he's iconic with when it comes to the first few seasons of Power Rangers. He's doing all that music.
Yeah. I think like also it helps that they used people who were actual like martial artists and whatnot. I don't know, Akil, what are your thoughts on Zach's little dancey dance martial arts style?
I love it. I love his dancey dance martial arts style. I feel like they all have like a little bit of dancey dance. But now that you say that these are all like martial artists, I'm kind of seeing that like when it comes to like balancing the acting and the martial arts, something that I noticed a lot in the fight scene is that it's like, do a martial arts move, camera cuts, do a martial arts move, camera cuts, do a martial arts move. But it doesn't seem too connected. And I noticed like even some people were like scooting over to get on their mark and to be properly framed and stuff. So I'm saying that like it's a criticism, but I actually love it because I like to see the gears turning in the filmmaking process and see how it all works. But like they didn't polish this show at all, and I love it.
No, it's so funny that like these little bits of like the acting kind of like survive in pop culture, you know, like they always make fun of the Power Ranger genre of like the enemies just like standing in the background and like doing
waiting
nothing, you know, they're just waiting. they're just moving. I think that's so funny because you know those are the moments that like you can't like describe, but you can just like enjoy, you know. It's like it adds all to the value of like the genre as a whole, like the Power Ranger genre as a whole. And it's like, it's not Power Rangers unless you have that. Like, even the latest season of Power Rangers, you can watch it and you're like, there's definitely people just standing there in the background. There's like 20 of these guys. There's only 4 of them. Like, that doesn't make any sense.
And it's funny because later seasons will attempt to explain certain things. And I appreciate it. But also part of me is just like, I don't need an explanation. It's Power Rangers nonsense. Like, I don't care, right? But like, I appreciate it on one side. It's like, okay, I as a huge fan, I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Like with the energy stuff, like why explosions happen.
Yes, okay. Are you talking from? I think it's RPM.
Yeah,
right?
it's RPM.
Yes.
Where like there's like, why is there always an explosion in the background? It's like, oh, it's the morphing grid discharge or something. Like it has to happen every time. It's like that's ridiculous. I don't need to know that, but I'm glad I do now.
And also with Jungle Fury, okay, and I know this is your favorite season, but I will never get over the beginning where they're like, I hacked into the morphing grid to make you these sunglass morphers. It's honestly, I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean to hack into the morphing grid?
Any season where they say, I accessed the morphing grid, I was like, what does that mean? What'd you plug into? What did you access? Like, there has to be a point to access it.
Did they mention the morphing grid in this first episode?
No.
Okay. No. So here's like the thing. They literally just, I think they just like while they were filming it, they were just literally coming up with terms like, on the spot. 'Cause,
Yeah.
like, I think they explained that Zordon is like a being from a different dimension, so he's like communicating through whatever tube thing he is.
He's an
But then, like,
Yeah.
trapped in a
there's
time
new-
warp, whatever that
Yeah,
means.
yeah.
Yes.
But there's-
Yes.
He's
Yeah.
trapped in a time
numerous-
warp.
But then, like, you think about I know the Power Rangers movie isn't canon, like the 1999 movie,
Yeah.
the first one. That's not
Yes,
canon, but
yeah.
he's like in there, like he's in there,
Yeah,
in there. Like
he's in
he's
there,
in the
yeah.
chamber. So he's like not transmitting. He's actually like physically there, but then also like it's all a mess. Like
It is all of us.
like rewatching like the Green Ranger episodes, I was like, they just kept adding detail after detail after detail of like trying to make sense of anything. It's just, and I don't know if it's because like, so the show is originally in Japanese, like it's originally called Zuhanger in Japan. And basically what Saban did is they just took this. I'm just explaining for the audience for people who don't know. They took clips from the show and then just kind of Frankenstein these episodes together. With what was going on with the actors and like what the action sequences were given to them. So that's why there's like a not drop in quality, but like a change in quality when like they're in suits, change in quality when like they're doing the giant monster fights. Because like I wouldn't even say half the show. I'd say like 60-70% of the show is just all clipped,
Especially in
like
the beginning,
together.
Yeah, and it's so funny because when the monsters originally attack, and Akil, you're gonna notice this a lot. It's like, oh, these background actors are clearly American, right? They're running around, and then cut to like literally Tokyo, Japan. So the background actors are clearly Japanese. You'll see that a lot.
Or like, or they'll like see the monster, like that's at the old mine that they like did the thing at, and you're like, it's always a mine, man.
It's always a quarry, especially in the newer seasons, it's a quarry on newer seasons.
Or like, what is it? An industrial area or a factory? And it's like, you guys just don't attack the city. You guys are terrible.
What the hell is going on in Angel Grove? Like, what is this season? Akil, do you have any other notes?
No, that's what I was going to ask. Like it seems like it was not filmed consistently at all. So you're saying that it is pieced together from like a Japanese show and the American one. Is Rita Repulsa part of the Japanese show then? Is that why?
Yes, and that's why she stepped in a puddle, because they needed something to tell her to say.
Yeah.
So actually, if you look at if you pause on the like whatever the establishing shot of her palace in the future episodes, it'll say it still has the name of the original character, which is Bandora. Like it's on the palace. It's just there. They don't change anything. They just leave it in there, because like who's really paying attention as kids? I sure didn't notice.
Yeah.
Like,
I didn't notice either.
I didn't notice it was dubbed. I was just like, oh yeah, she said make my monster grow. No, she didn't. That's not what she said at all.
You when I watched Power Rangers and like I made that transition to watching like the Japanese ones, it was like it's so weird to catch them now, because like they get a lot better at it later on. But it's so apparent in this first season. It's whatever, you know. But I can imagine like that's why they were able to make like what it was 3 seasons, right? But like how many episodes collectively was that? Like
a lot. Season 1 has 60 episodes.
Yeah, it's like 60 episodes. But it's like, okay, can you imagine like these drama shows usually they film in like a week or two, right? To release the episode maybe like a month later. So literally you could shoot like a whole week and have like 4 episodes. And then dump the entire thing on your editors and like, okay, we have these segments. You need to patch them into these episodes. For editing crew,
there's a lot of like continuity errors in like throughout the season. Because like they probably weren't even keeping track of what episodes were what, and like monsters get reused and like stuff is just.
Okay, this is a very particular thing, because it's also notorious for using like. It's for using footage over and over again, and like, you know, Goldar attacks in the first episode, right? Like he attacks in the first episode, and then again I was rewatching the Green Ranger episodes. I was like, this is the same shot from when Goldar attacked in the first episode.
I'm pretty sure them jumping is probably the same one shot. Them all just jumping. Like you just see them. They would not have to do that over and over again. They're just like,
and then in Forever Red, they didn't even bother shooting new morphing suits.
Every time I think about Forever Red, it gets worse and worse. So I remember the second time I watched it, I was like, that's just a Beetleborg. Like that's just a Beetleborg.
Forever Red is a 10th 10th season, 10th season anniversary, where they bring a
Yeah.
bunch of Red Rangers together. But the morphing sequences they use for the Red Rangers are from their like respective shows. Like it's not like they have filmed new ones. So like in the episode, someone's hair will be one way, but then in the morphing sequence, it's completely different because they just took it from the old thing.
Yes. Oh man.
Yeah,
That's
and then like
fantastic.
people are like younger. It's hilarious. That's so. Nick, I want to hear your thoughts. Great. What are your notes for this episode?
I mean, I think it was just like I wanted to say like I thought it was much more complicated. I was like, how do they jam so much detail into 26 minutes? And I was like, they just don't. They literally just tell you everything that they need to tell you, and then they move on to the next thing. It was just kind of very nostalgic to kind of see it again as an adult. I mean, I've watched it periodically through my life, and it's always been kind of like an eye opener. But like watching it now, it's like, dang, like they just got away with anything. It was like the Wild West in television. What I think is really funny is like I've seen it so much, and just I catch new things every time. Like they didn't even fight Goldar really. They just got their ass beat by Goldar, and then the sword came down, and then Goldar dipped, and I was like, you guys did nothing. You guys got your ass kicked in this episode, and then he just left. Like you guys didn't do anything. What's really funny is when they like the smallest detail that I really enjoyed that I saw was like the sword came down, and like when the Megazord goes to grab the sword, I was like, that's not their hand. That's a different hand. That's like a different like the Megazord has like these really chonky like mitten things, but when they go grab the sword, it's like a regular silver hand. And it's just so funny to see.
Oh, I thought you were going to point out the other thing where in that episode, in the first episode, they grab it with one hand, and then for some reason
they grab it with the second
other
one.
and they switch.
But it's kind of, I kind of think that's like a little charming, I don't know if that was like intentional.
I just thought that's where you were going with that detail.
Yeah, but I don't know if like, I feel like what the Japanese footage sometimes is like, it's really charming to see. I don't even know if they had like a reason for why they did that. But it just adds more to that value. You're definitely going to see a lot of quality differences between like the Japanese footage and the American footage, not just like in intercutting, but just like the American actors have to have their own suits too. And this becomes like notoriously bad. You'll see that it becomes notoriously bad later on. But it was just kind of like a throwback and kind of comforting. It's like, yeah, okay. All of this I remember. I just experiencing it in like this like magnificent show of being campy and corny was just like so much fun again. It was really great. Yeah. That's, I mean, I don't think I have anything to take away. I mean, this is basically the blueprint for every like superhero episode 1. I think it contributes a lot of tropes like comedic relief, like Bulk and Skull, and like I said before, like Rita Repulsa is like the blueprint for like villain of the week. She literally has this formula that's constructed around her. It's like, every week we're just gonna try to mess him up every single week. I'm gonna fail. I'm gonna keep trying.
Yeah. It only takes 10 seconds to make putties.
Yeah.
Did you notice that? I was like, oh, that's a weird thing to know. It's like, I'll just take and that's you just make a million putties. I don't know. It doesn't matter, but I think it's like hilarious. It's like made out of clay.
The world's first 3D
I
printer.
think they only made one. They just repeated the clip.
Yeah.
It's like a bunch of putties, and they're really weak. They're pretty much,
And the costume changed.
Yeah. I was actually surprised. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just gonna say I love that Rita is like the villain of the week. Her motivation, I don't know if this is for the whole season or just for this episode, is she's having a coming out party and her plan is to just destroy the nearest planet.
Yeah, literally. It doesn't change. I think like later on she's just pissed that she keeps failing. But otherwise, like that's still her main goal. Like
we call that growth. Character growth.
She actually does have some growth later.
Yeah. The whole Rita Zed era is one of my favorites. I cannot wait to get to those episodes. Because I have a lot of thoughts on Rita Zed. I love them. They also almost kiss, but never actually kiss. But you know what? Like, it's fine.
Goals.
But they actually are a couple goals, and I'll get to that when we get there. But another thing that I noticed with this episode, Ernie has I don't remember, like he's more of a prominent character than I remember as a kid, right? Like he actually like talks to them and like is interacting with them like all the time. as a kid, I'm like, oh yeah, he's just the guy who owns the juice bar.
Yeah.
No, he's there.
But he actually, yeah, he's like, he's has a bigger role. And then as soon as I saw it this time, I'm like, flashbacks. I'm like, oh right, he does a lot. He's like talking to them like all the time. Like he's a legit character.
Mhm. I think he sets up a lot of the narratives for them as teenagers, you know? It's
Yeah.
like, oh, hey guys, you guys working on the floats this week? You know, like
Yeah.
he's the exposition
Yeah.
for all of them.
Oh yeah, he is. Yeah. How did you feel about Ernie Akil? What's the first thoughts on this juice bar owner?
I didn't even know he had a name until just
I think, do they say it?
They do,
say it
they
in the
do,
first episode?
yeah.
They do. Oh, what did you think about the juice bar? Because it is a youth center, so they spend a lot of time hanging out there. But like, so in your first like thoughts on like teenagers hanging out in this place and doing these activities, what's it like seeing that for the first time?
Oh,
Because it's gonna set it.
yeah, I think it sets it up perfectly because this is like a teen area for teens, teen show. But like, I wish we still had those. We don't have those anymore.
See, I
Yeah.
was like, because I grew up in 1990. Well, I was born in 1994, so most of my
Yeah.
childhood I remember is like the late 90s, early 2000s, and I was like,
Yeah.
no place like this exists. Like this isn't like a real
Yeah.
thing. You're not gonna have
Yeah.
a balance beam in the middle of this room, and then also have like a Taekwondo class in the corner.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen.
I was like, how much money does the city have
Yeah.
that they have this youth center? Because like my community center barely had anything, like
Yeah.
barely. Yeah.
I mean, they must have a lot because buildings are being destroyed every week, and they're clearly
Yes.
still doing okay. Like the city has not been evacuated into a ghost town, so clearly they're doing
Yeah.
they're doing well.
Yeah.
Not
So
like
like,
crazy insurance. You know?
yes.
Well,
At the end of
teenagers doing community service every week.
every week, yeah, they don't even need it. It's just like free labor because these kids, they're so good. I know, again, the Power Rangers movie is not canon, but literally the whole city gets decimated, and then there's fireworks.
Yeah, and they're like, go Power
Where did
Rangers.
you get this money? And they're like crazy fireworks. They're like Wonderland level fireworks, Disney World level fireworks. Like, where did you get the money? Like, don't you have to fix your city? Like, what's happening?
These guys are skydiving out of a plane.
Oh my gosh.
They're skydiving out of a plane in the beginning of this movie.
They're also just like it's a skydiving like competition because you have to like it was
Yes.
weird.
You have to land in the
What is
thing.
going on? Like, why are they always doing these activities? Like, they just do everything. They teach. They like have
Yes.
time for extracurriculars. Go to school. Apparently, do their homework because they do well.
Yeah.
Like, where do you and
Yeah.
save the day? And save the day. Where do you have all this time?
They're like super teens.
Funny. Okay, you know what? I was like joking that they have these kids do community service like every week, but this is actually comic book knowledge. They actually do address this. They're like, yeah, we actually do community service because we fuck up the city literally all the time.
Oh,
So
that's
that's
so
why.
funny.
They're not
Yeah.
using kids.
This comic book sounds like fan fiction, and
No,
I'm
it- no,
here
yeah,
for it. I
I
know it's canon, but it just like when you talk about it, it sounds like fan fiction.
no, it does because like okay, the personal life story. Kyle Higgins, who is like who wrote for Power Rangers, is a giant Power Ranger fan, which is why the comic books are regarded as like pretty good
Yeah.
because he's a big fan and he kind of just pokes fun at a lot of these things and explores these different dynamics between all of them in the most like genuine way because he's also like a tokusatsu fan. Like if you've seen my videos on like Radiant Black and stuff like that, this guy knows like what Power Rangers was and like to understand like he wrote for the comic books. It's like, dang, okay, like yeah. Sometimes he's like really like yeah, we're the cleanup committee because the city gets attacked all the time. I was like, I didn't need to know that, but I do appreciate that I know that now.
Yeah, I literally love that. That's amazing to hear because you love it when like writers are fans of the work. I only say that because again, personal story, and I guess it's embarrassing to admit I read a lot of Power Ranger fan fiction growing up, and it's just very similar vibes going on there.
And in the bonus episodes, we will read it.
Oh my god!
That is so
Some of the Power Rangers fan fiction. So the biggest ship is Rocky Adam. Most of the fan fiction, Rocky and Adam. Yeah, it's one of the big things. Back in the YouTube days, do you know how many videos I've seen of like Rocky and Adam like looking at each other? It was a time. Yeah.
I would
That
not
is so
consider
cool.
Rocky for anything. Like, he's
honestly,
just
every
not
time I think
there.
about Rocky's just kind of there most of the time in my memory.
Yeah, I talked about this before because I'm like, Rocky used to be one of my favorite Rangers, and he was like, why? And I think now that I read a lot of fan fiction, I probably have to attribute it Ultraman fiction, because it's like, yeah, you're right, in the show he's just doing nothing. He's kind of like just kicking around and whatnot. But yeah, so Nev, do you have any notes on this rewatch of the episode?
Yeah, I mean, we touched upon a lot that we touched upon a lot of things that I'd taken note, but I think the one thing we didn't is, or Nick kind of touches upon it, this episode really establishes like so many tropes, callbacks, and references that eventually come, in future, not only in like this season, but the entire series, right? Like we joked around about like the explosions, but like explosions when they morph or when things happen, the big explosions behind them, like that's in every season. I don't care what season you're watching, it happens in every season. Rita saying, "Make my monster grow," even though it's Goldar, but like a monster of the week. The archetypes for the Rangers, right? Like when you look at, spoiler a little, but if you look at several seasons, but especially Megaforce, when they pretty much return to form in a way. Obviously there's a little change, but they go back to like all these archetypes of what these characters are going to be. It started in this episode, and like it just follows through. More phenomenal becomes this big phrase that Billy says like every episode. Trina being his translator. Jason's martial arts, Zach's hip hop keto. I don't know if you knew it was called that, Akil, but it's called hip hop keto. His dance martial arts.
That's cool.
He teaches a class. Again, how do they have the time for all of this?
We never see them in class. I think like we probably see them in class like once.
We sometimes,
because like then their project will get turned into a monster. Like this.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
But one of the I remember it was just I can't remember which monster, but one of the monsters that did get turned into was like one of the best because it was actually formidable. It's like, Rita, Zach, maybe you should do more of this instead of just creating your random, creatures.
Yeah, clearly your own imagination is not up to par, guys. You gotta step it up a bit. Get to Ranger level of destructiveness.
But yeah, it's like, the color-coded attire,
we talked about this a little bit before the show.
Let's talk about more about the clothes, because this is one of the most iconic things. I'm glad you brought that up, Nev, because if we did not talk about it, it'll be detrimental. They're always color-coded. And you know what? Kimberly, who is like the fashionable one, and they still change their outfits, which, as you know, in Megaforce they don't. They wear like the same outfit every time. But in one of the interviews, they're like, "Can we change clothes, please?" And they're like, "No, you cannot." Your clothes. But the 90s version, even before, and this episode shows it, even before they became the Rangers, they're already color-coded. It might have been neat if they changed their clothes afterwards and be like, because I'm yellow, I'm going to wear yellow all the time. But no, it's like who they wear always.
Yeah.
Always every yellow, blue, green, red. I think that's amazing.
I think that's so funny because it's like no one ever puts two and two together. It's like everybody who's associated with both the teenagers and the Power Rangers, they're just like, oh yeah, these color coordinated superheroes, they come in and save the day. We also have color coordinated teenagers that are never in the same place at the same time. And it's just
and
so
also
funny.
clean up the mess that the superheroes
superheroes make. Oh, that's so strange. Anyway, you guys want to go to the juice bar?
You're really ready.
Right, yeah. I was like, wow, Jason, that's your red again. It's so funny just thinking about it. The further you get away from watching Power Rangers, the funnier it gets. But every time you watch it, it just is so charming, and it's just these are the small details that make it work. And that 90s fashion is definitely, it's seeing it again, it's oh, maybe it was a little dorky. But it's also just iconic now. It's man, I wish I could dress like Jason. I wish I could dress like Billy. Even Billy was styling, man.
I know, yeah.
Dress like Billy.
Exactly.
I wore overalls and a blue shirt every single day of my life growing up.
Yeah, man, that guy's got style. All of them had style.
Yeah, I kind of really miss that era, especially watching Kimberly and Trini, their clothes. I'm like, damn, these girls look so good. I kind of miss it. But I feel that way when I watch 80s stuff too. I'm like, oh man, I wish I could dress like that now. Technically we could, but I don't have the gall. I don't have the gall to do it.
Nav touched on setting up the blueprint for basically what the rest of the genre looks like in the future. And for some reason, it always sticks in my mind when Kimberly gets in her Megazord and she says "nice stereo," because every time I watch a new season of Power Rangers, someone says it, or like I remember specifically watching Megaforce, and the Pink Ranger says it, and I felt immediately offended because it was just like Megaforce is like notoriously not that great.
Yeah.
So it was like, oh, I get the homage and I get the respect. I hate it though. Like,
but
this bothers me.
With that, the Pink Ranger in Megaforce is not like Kimberly. Like, their personalities are very different.
Yes,
so that's why it's also annoying, because like you would not say that. You're this like nature loving person. Like, what do you care about stereo? Like, you're just They tried to make homages with no effort to like actually make them
connect them.
Yeah.
Yes, that's why when they got Adam to say more phenomenal, John Young Bosch was kind of like, but I've never said that in my season. Like, I've literally never said it. Like, what do you mean? And also, have a nice trip. See you next fall. You'll hear that multiple times as well.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
So it is canon,
That's
right?
right. That's from. I heard that all the time growing up. I never knew what it was.
So
from.
good. I don't think it's from Power Rangers, but
Okay.
it's definitely.
They definitely use it. They use it a lot. It's one of their favorite lines. One time they actually say, "I'm going to toss your salad" in a not sexual way at all. Like, it was a salad. It literally was a salad monster.
Oh.
These memes always make their rounds on Twitter like once a year, you know? I think that one was like a month ago. I got reminded of that one like a month ago.
Yeah.
It's pretty funny.
Yeah. Also, the other, I guess, trope is just like the establishment of what Rangers fit, what role. Obviously, it changes throughout the series, but like typically Red Ranger is leader, and like the persona Jason embodies is so like you see it in most Red Rangers in some shape or form. Obviously, they play around with it, but like I just love, because I love Jason. He's my favorite Power Ranger, and so just like the little linger. I love the little linger when everybody's leaving the command center and they're just like, Jason.
And he looks back.
Yeah, and he's just like, huh? Like, he's like, no, wait, this is a like, I'm interested. Like, I because he's such a good, like, just good-hearted person. And he's like, someone asks me to do something good, you know, why wouldn't I do it? And like, also what's big with Jason, because I rewatched this episode right before we started recording, is his like demeanor. He's quiet and confident. Like, he doesn't have to show off. That's not what he does. Zach is a bit more show-offy, a bit. He's kind of like more playful, but Jason's just kind of like not stoic, but he's just very comfortable in who he is. That he doesn't need to present it in a loud way, and I just really appreciate that about Jason.
I find it really funny, like, because again, this like exemplifies his character. But when Zordon's like, "Hello, Rangers," and he just turns around, crosses his arms, like, "Yeah, what of it? What do you want?"
This is me. I have accepted it. I am a Ranger now. He's so adorable too. Like, he's so cute, and like literally, I would see he would be like a ladies' man of that time. Like, I can definitely see that, and the fact that he's just like so humble and so kind is so great, and like the way he's so kind to Billy, it just warms my heart, especially like knowing how the actor was treated on set by other people. It's like very, very heartbreaking. So it's nice to see these moments when, people are kind to him. I have such a love and fondness for Billy. It breaks my heart.
Well, that's a really great point too, because typically Jason fits the like jock stereotype and Billy fits the nerd stereotype, but they're friends. Like, it automatically also like challenges the idea of like you can only be a certain way or a certain type of person. Like, the show is literally like, no, you can be whatever you want to be, and with the help of people who support you, that's possible. And this show like does it right there. Like, Billy's the one self-doubting, and Jason and everyone else is like, no, you got this. Like, and then Jason even he had the insight to like highlight Billy's strength, which is his intelligence. So after he struggles physically, he asks a question, and he probably even knows Billy knows this, but like the fact that he allowed Billy to shine in that regard, I'm just like, Jason, what a guy.
It's also very hilarious about Billy is they had to put him in these baggy clothes because he's actually ripped under there. It's very Ben Swallow-esque stuff.
What's also funny about Billy's character is like it just shows in the writing that like they didn't really know how to make Billy look like sound like a nerd, and they just like give him like just a bunch of word salad that sounds smart. Like when he sees Alpha the first time, I think he's like, it's a self-functioning sentient automaton. I've never seen it. I was like, well, you're just saying stuff. Like you're just saying stuff. Like,
But
And then
that's
Yeah.
shot
he's like,
also.
what's morph? And he's like, metamorphosis.
Like, I have a question. Okay, I have a question for you guys. Because it's sometimes like I know like Power Rangers like they're in suits, right? But like every time they say morph, I always question like, does their body change? Because some Rangers do change.
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
they do change. Like the morphing grid allows them to change their body to
Yeah.
fit like in the suit. So it's like there's like
Yeah.
a whole science to it.
Yeah, cough, turbo cough.
Yeah, the turbo or
Turbo's the
SPD.
most egregious, though.
What is it?
But
we got some-
In Turbo, they have a little kid who then becomes like a like
A full-grown.
He's full grown at
Yeah.
that size when he morphs. Like
Yeah.
it's-
Yeah, it's very Shazam.
Yeah.
It's very
Yeah,
Shazam.
it's very
Yeah.
Shazam, yeah. But it's like I wonder, like when they say morph, it's like I wonder what happens to their bodies. Like, do they just,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know?
I thought they turned Japanese.
They all turn Japanese.
Yeah.
Did you catch that the Yellow Ranger doesn't have a skirt? And
Yeah.
Kimberly does.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
that was the first detail everybody.
Yeah.
catches
Because
it.
in the Japanese he's a guy. Yeah.
The Japanese
Oh,
version,
okay.
he's a guy.
But
So
I think it's better. The show is better that they added Trini. It definitely like
there's a lot of balance.
throws in the balance. And for a '90s show, it has so much representation.
Yes.
It's unheard of to see that type of representation shown, and it continues on. Like it never stops being what it is, and I think it's great for that as well. Really, and it was so popular. Like it's not what it is now. Like Power Rangers was the forefront of children's televisions, and teenagers were watching it like as like a show that they like to watch. It wasn't now like it's considered a children's TV show and only children watch it. It was a different time, so much so that they created a whole large budget movie from it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they
3. Oh no,
they-
actually, 2, and then
Dude.
there's the movie. There was a television one.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
like basically I forgot if it was at Disneyland or some like theme park. They pretty much like shut it down just because like when the Power Rangers were there, it was just like madness. The people
Yes.
that came in droves, like because it
Yeah.
was so popular at the time that it came out. Which is like when you watch it now, you're like, how was this thing? That's
Yeah.
like, it's just. It had all those elements. It had the right amount of like personality within the characters. Every character, whether it's Zordon, Rita, Alpha, or the Rangers, like even Goldar. Like I actually noted that he has a different voice in the first episode than
He does, yeah,
and
he
I
does.
like
He does,
I like
yeah.
the later voice. I don't like this voice actually. Maybe it's just because that one lasted longer, so I'm used to it. But this one like comes off more intimidating, which is clearly the point. But I think they decided to like make it more childish. Like it's not that it's childish; it's still gravelly, but it doesn't have that same like intimidation, in my opinion.
I
think that's
I
his-
thought the second voice got a little goofier. You
Right,
know,
that's
'cause
what I'm
he
saying.
does,
Yes, I was gonna say that.
Are you saying like the first one's a little bit more like mature and stuff?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm saying the first one's a bit
Yeah.
stronger, like more of an intimidation versus
Yeah,
like, the
yeah,
second
yeah.
one's goofier. They're like, yes,
The
my
second one's like,
queen.
Yeah, because his character sucks. No, like not like I love it, but is if in world his character is not good at his job. Like he's like continually failing. Like I think like they had to kind of like
The sword showed up.
I know. Oh man.
I do like the relationship he has, like Goldar in particular, with Jason, though.
Yes.
This like sort of adversary thing. Even though Jason kicks his ass like every time, but it's just like he just has this personal vendetta. He's like, I hate you. Like I need
Like
to
Jason
hate
in
you.
Yeah.
There's definitely fan fiction of that out there. I guarantee
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
Enemies to lovers.
But still,
Yeah.
Enemies to lovers joke.
But
It's my
Goldar has
favorite.
personality,
Goldar
especially
and Jason.
with the other voice, Goldar gets a lot more personality in how he engages with Jason and the Rangers and Rita, especially.
Yeah.
All these
Well, the whole
Booster,
yeah.
Squat and Baboon,
Yeah.
they're silly, but like this line kills me every time I watch the first episode where after she steps in the puddle, right, he just I forget it's Squat, yeah, he just goes, walk with me, talk with me. I don't know why, but it just kills me every time.
Yeah, and he's like always like there for Rita. He's always just like kind of like, oh, I know you're a bit over dramatic. I'm here to calm you down. He's kind of like the court's fool kind of role, where it's like I'm here to like ground you, but I'll do it in like a silly way and whatnot. Whereas Goldar, he's not as loyal to Rita, and we definitely see that in later episodes with Zed. Like straight up, he's like, "All right, bye, Rita. I don't give a shit about you anymore." But yeah, it's like you can really see even within the bad guys, like the small intricacies of who their loyalties are, like their kind of relationship with each other. In the next episode, which I remember more than any other episode, you'll definitely see that a lot more. This kind of like bickering that's going on between them. Or the next two episodes, but we'll get to that in next time on on Once a Ranger. Yeah, I think that like what's another thing that's really funny is Rita Repulsa when she throws her staff down and it causes this like earthquake every episode.
Yeah.
Every episode. It's definitely Los Angeles.
Yeah,
definitely Los Angeles.
The thing breaks and like the Zords come out of the ground and literally like shatter the ground. It's hilarious when you think of the Zords and where they're hidden, especially in Ninja Storm. One of them is a Ferris wheel.
Yeah.
Are there people riding that Ferris wheel?
I've thought about this where like the ground breaks open every time the Megazords come out. And then how does Rita get her staff back when she throws it? These are the thoughts I had when I was like growing up. Like, it's fine. They'll explain it maybe, and they never do. And you're like, she just has a million of them.
Yeah. Well, the moon to Earth ratio also, like the distance is pretty much instantaneous. You just throw it, and it's like. But one thing I actually really like that Zordon says is never escalate a battle unless it is escalated first. So I think people really kind of forget that he said that because everyone's like, why don't they just like immediately kill them? Why don't they take the Zords out right away? Never escalate a battle unless Rita it's escalated. Yeah, exactly. And to what you were saying, Nev, a little bit earlier about how Jason is like the typecast for what the Red Rangers are supposed to be, I feel like Carter Grayson is a really streamlined way of Jason. He's so amazing as a Red Ranger. I think he's like one of the best Red Rangers. But to oppose that, I'm blanking on his name, but the Wild Force Red Ranger is the antithesis of what Jason is. He's like, he just cries all the time. He like, I don't even know what's going on with him. And it's so interesting to kind of see how that plays out.
I love me some Carter. I'm so glad you mentioned
Cole from Wild Force, right?
Cole from Wild Force.
That's why, again, skipping way ahead, but in Forever Red, like that interaction is like very. I think it was very intentional to have Jason and Cole, interact and like working together, and because like it's a kind of passing of the torch in a way, and hopefully Cole learned something. I don't remember Wild Force too well. It's not one of my favorites.
I remember Wild Force pretty well, other than the main guy apparently. But I think what like Cole represents, and again we're getting ahead, but like he has the heart, he has the heart for being what it is to be a leader, even though he's like kind of a goofball. Like around this time they also start experimenting with like the leadership role a little bit, because all of them are pretty assured and like a secure leader for the team, and then like it's not until like Wes, I think, that like really kind of breaks the mold and is like, I'm gonna be your Red Ranger, but I'm also like trying to figure out my life, and I'm kind of
and that season where like Pink really takes the forefront of the leadership role, I think is like great.
And you can argue in Wild Force that Taylor was the leader. She was actually until Cole came in, but like the Yellow Ranger, she was the leader until Cole, and then they're like, because he's the Red Ranger. You're like, but he has no experience.
It's like really in SBD they kind of mentioned that like why should you be the leader if just because you're red? Right? And I think it's great that one is linked to Time Force. I'm sorry, Akil, I know this is way over your head.
This is like, I get a bunch of nerds talking.
I have a lot to look forward to.
It's such a profound moment, though, with Sky, since you mentioned SPD. I won't get into it too much, but the beginning and ending of his journey is so well done in that, especially with that, because he's asked that question at the beginning and the end, and his answers are so different.
I think that's really good too.
Do
Sorry,
you have
Nick.
like a favorite moment like from this episode?
Ooh.
I always like it when they're unmorphed. Like, I think I noticed when I was younger, and when I was talking to other Power Ranger fans, they always would talk to me about like the fight scenes. For me, just the interactions at the juice bar with like Kimberly and Trini teeheeing at each other and like them all just hanging out. I think that was my favorite moment.
I think for me, I really enjoyed that that sword grab, that the whole giant monster fight. That's just iconic to me. It's like they literally they got their ass beat. They grabbed the sword and then Goldar dipped. I was like, you guys did nothing this episode. But it's always fun. Like I'm a really big like tokusatsu, like big giant robot monster guy.
Mhm.
It's fun to like experience that for like, as an adult, like remembering like what it was like as a kid. And just like thinking like, wow, like you could be so cool out of nowhere if I could just find a morpher, if I could be a Power Ranger, And it's like, I think what it really defines itself too, like supporting this superhero idea is that like, oh, you're like in a freak accident or like you're always living with your superpowers. Like, no, they power down and they go to school and they have like relationships and you're only a superhero when you want to be. And I feel like that's kind of fun because it adds to that layer of like responsibility. It's like, yeah, you can be a superhero whenever you want, or you can just, be a normal person too. And that made it feel a little realer, like as a kid, you're like, I want to be a Power Ranger when I grow up, and obviously
and you can do it.
you can do it in ways, but like, it's one of those things that's like it seems possible and it's like I want to do that. Especially like
That's lovely.
live action too, like comic books and TV shows, cartoons, like that's crazy, but then you see Power Rangers, like this is like a real live action. You experience it as a kid, like this is a live action, these are real people jumping on the screen, like I want to do that, and in some shape or form like you latch onto that, like it's a like a motivating thing. So it's really fun to like have those big fights and see like I want to do that,
Yeah, I think so too. No, what was your favorite moment? We're gonna end on Akil's favorite moment because he's new. Yeah.
I think similar to you. I think them in the juice bar, particularly Jason and the whole karate lesson, the tornado kick. I'm just gonna say the tornado kick. It's really
tornado
awesome.
kick, yeah.
So I've always wanted to do a tornado kick ever since I saw Jason do it. It's so cheesy, but freaking, it's so good.
It's so good.
It's so good.
Yeah,
I love it, and just like, but that whole scene in particular of him like with Billy, and then humbling Bulk, like just all of it together, just like highlights Jason as a character and what we're gonna see a lot of going forward.
I love Jason. He is amazing. But Akil, let's hear what your favorite moment, first time seeing.
My favorite moment has to be the fight scene before they actually morph. Because then we get to see their personalities, we get to see like their strengths and weaknesses, like individuals, like before they're working together.
Mm-hmm.
But also, that's like right before my biggest gripe with this episode.
Ooh.
Which is, let's hear the script.
I think they jumped the shark on this one. Because so like
explain how.
they get their powers. They're introduced to their powers. Fantastic. Small gripe. They're called dinosaurs. They call them dinosaurs twice. 2 of them are not dinosaurs. I feel like
Yeah, of course. Sit on.
Yeah. So they
I mean, that's fine.
They fight and then they get their butts kicked, and then they morph into the Power Rangers, and then they fight again, and I'm like, cool, they've like learned to accept their role as heroes, and then they transform into the dinosaurs, and then they transform into the Megazord, and I'm like, okay, that's everything. What are like how do you go forward from this? We get it all now.
Yeah, they do kind of like remedy that later in later seasons. They do have a more rollout, but I think this time they're like, this is everything we can do.
Yeah.
And then, so I think in the future episodes, not to spoil it too much, they kind of cut out the middle part completely.
Okay.
Yeah, so it just like straight to, I think they just want to show you that they can do it, the middle part. Yeah.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. Well, on that note, I think that would be our episode for Once a Ranger. Sorry, Nev, we're running out of time. We just wanted to do one brief moment of a dedication to Jason David Frank, who so tragically took his own life earlier this month. So we're dedicating this episode toward him. But until next time, this has been Once a Ranger.
Once a Ranger,
Always a Ranger.